The Chicago Bears have made a big move. And yes, I'm going to sit here and say big move. And N'Keal Harry, a player that we have talked about before on this podcast, the kind of guy, the kind of low cost, low risk wide receiver who has a lot of upside, is the perfect player for the Chicago Bears. And we're going to talk about that tonight with Clay Harbor, former NFL superstar. And some of you might know him from The Bachelorette. But listen, he's a former NFL player. So, Sammy, let's not waste any time. Let's start the show.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Adam Ray.
Trying to cut it back. Justin Fields making magic happen. There goes Fields. Touchdown.
The sickest Chicago Bears and fantasy football podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
It's Tuesday night. You know what that means. It's time for Take It to the Rank. And it's me, Adam Rank, in New York City. Yeah, I'm here in this hotel room in downtown Manhattan. Yes, we've been doing Good Morning Football all week. We will be here through Friday. So get used to this room. It's not normally what we're used to seeing me in, but you know what? That's okay. That's fine, because our guest tonight has got the perfect lighting, and he deserves it more than me. He's the face. He is the handsome face that you need to see, not mine. So let's bring him onto the show. Clay Harbor is with us tonight. Clay, how are you?
I'm doing great, Adam. I appreciate the intro when you called me the NFL superstar. I did play 9 years in the league, but I would not say I was a superstar. You know, I was out there on the special teams. I was doing the H-back, the move stuff. But, you know, I love the game, love talking ball. Appreciate you having me on.
No, we really love having you on. And honestly, anybody who makes it to the NFL level, in my estimation, is an NFL superstar. So let's make no mistake about that. I believe, how many career touchdowns? Was it 8?
Yeah, 8 carear touchdowns. If you count the preseason, man, I would have been a preseason Hall of Famer. I
probably
had about 8 to 10 in the preseason. So 8 touchdowns regular season, another 8 probably in the preseason.
Every time you scored one of those preseason touchdowns, I would always be like, this is a guy in the last round of your fantasy draft. Make sure you're picking Clay Harbor, because he gets onto the field. You could block, you could do it all. And obviously you had a nice run there. Then you went on, you did the Bachelorette, broke your wrist. We talked about this last time you were on the show. I got to tell you, those male models, instantly when you were on that show, and who was it? Was it Robbie? Who was the guy? Like, I just didn't like
the guy's name was Jordan, the male model.
Jordan, that's what it was. Yeah. That guy was the worst. I don't know if you're friends with him. I don't want to besmirch him, but did not care for him. But I like you, though. I've always liked you. I
appreciate that. No, you know my whole bio, Adam. I always love it, man. You know the Bachelor world, you know all the football stuff, so can't get anything past you.
Yeah, it's true. And it's so funny too, because you have always been, and I know we talked about this last time, but we can't assume that everybody watched that previous episode. Yeah. I always appreciated you when you were on Bachelor in Paradise. And you're like, yeah, I'm not getting engaged after a week. I'm sorry. I really like this young lady, but I'm not running into a marriage just to make Chris Hansen happy so he can get whoever the diamond guy was. Like,
yeah, Neil Lane.
Neil Lane.
Yeah. So Chris Harrison, Adam. Chris Hansen's the guy who used to run that Dateline.
Oh, that's right.
To catch a predator. So a little different, Chris Harrison, Chris Hansen, but Chris Harrison. They would try to listen, you should really get engaged. I'm like, no. I've known her for 2 weeks. I'm not going to do that. This is not happening. I'll date her. I want to date her and maybe get to know her a little bit more, but I'm not going to get down to the knee after 2 weeks.
Yeah, we're not doing that. So I always appreciated that. So I always appreciated your level-headedness. Like, you've got, you know what you're doing. You're now building up your resume in the world of television as well, becoming a big star in that industry. But let's talk a little bit about the Chicago Bears, because today the Bears are sending a 7th-round pick to one of your former teams, the New England Patriots, for N'Keal Harry, a former 1st-round pick out of Arizona State. I'm curious as to how do you view this move?
I love it. I love it for the Bears. And I think it was something the Patriots had to do, because if you remember, Harry requested a trade before last season. They just couldn't get it done. So this is something they had to do. I don't think they got what they wanted. This guy's a former 1st-round pick, okay? Mm-hmm. This guy was a 1st-round draft pick who had 300 catches, 3,000 yards in college, 213 receptions. He was a track star, 3-sport athlete in high school. This guy's younger than Velus Jones. He's 24 years old. Okay. He's 24 years old. He's 6'2", 230-pound beast, younger than Velus Jones. This is a great move for them. Obviously, he hasn't really set the world on fire since being in the league. I did a little research on him because, I want to know the home teams picking up, being a Bears fan my entire life, born in Libertyville, from Chicago, live in Chicago. Great blocker. PFF has him as the third best blocker in the league. But he is the 101st receiver above 15 targets in the league, graded as that. So great blocker. So it's telling me he's putting forth the effort. This is an effort, guys, coming from New England. That is a tough playbook to know. I've played in a lot of different teams, that there's some benefits and some negatives to doing that. But New England's playbook was very difficult. I picked up the Jaguars playbook like that. I get cut midseason with the Patriots. I go to Detroit on a Tuesday. I'm playing on Sunday. I know the playbook. I could pick up a playbook. New England's playbook. If you're a receiver and you know that playbook and you have to move around, that's tough. That tells me he's a smart player. I think Poles is going after specific type guys. He's a first-round draft pick. He's a Bill Belichick guy. Obviously, Bill does his homework. He's only taking a specific type of guy to that system. So I think this will be a good fit and be a good opportunity for him, a former first-round pick, to really show that he's better than what he's put forth in the NFL so far.
Yeah, I don't think it's unusual for guys to go to a situation. It doesn't necessarily work out for them. It usually works out in reverse for the New England Patriots. If you think about players like Wes Welker, who bounced around the NFL. I think he was drafted by the Chargers, played some with the Dolphins, then goes to New England, obviously, and has a great career. So it's not unheard of. And I know, again, like talking about how young he is, and this isn't a shot at Velus Jones Jr., which, by the way, that interview that we did on the Sick Podcast was picked up all over the place, where he was talking about his age and maturity. And I just think that it just brings something different to the table. I went back and looked at what Lance Zierlein had in his initial scouting report on NFL.com. He had N'Keal Harry as an Allen Robinson type of player. And Allen Robinson, before everything that happened last season, was good blocking, great effort. So to me, I think, again, like, it's low cost. Like, why? I don't know. And I don't know if it's just haters just naturally reacting to things and wanting to make fun of things. Why do people have to be negative about things like this?
As a Bears fan, I don't understand. I think Poles did a great job. He gave up a 2024 7th-round draft pick. Low cost. To give this guy an opportunity to show what he can do. Allen Robinson type player. I love that. I love that description. Obviously, A-Rob's a guy that I played with for 3 seasons in Jacksonville. Loved A-Rob, hardworking guy. I'm excited to see what he does over in Los Angeles. I think he'll do well this year, but it's something they need. He's a big guy. You put him on the field with Mooney. I like the tight end core, Cole Kmet, like James O'Shaughnessy, Ryan Griffin. I talked about them last time. I want to see what Velus Jones can do, and I think this is a great addition.
Yeah, what is the expectation when you trade a 7th-round pick? Obviously, you don't have a lot invested in him. I see people saying, like, well, he's not a lock to make the team. But when you look at the wide receivers that the Bears have, I think there's a huge opportunity for him. So I'm not saying that he's guaranteed a spot to be on this team, but I think he's got a really good chance of making the opening day roster.
A huge opportunity. Obviously Mooney, to me, is the only guy that's really penciled in. St. Brown. I think you got some good players there, but I think that he could realistically, if he shows he can play and he plays well through training camp and in preseason, I think realistically he could be a number 2 receiver for this team. It's not out of the realm of possibilities for me. If he goes in, he's impressing people, he's making plays. I could see him, being a number 2. There's no, we obviously signed a couple of guys that can play, but there's no number 2, in my opinion, set in stone here in Chicago besides Mooney.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great opportunity for him. And it just brings more competitiveness. It's something Poles wants. He wants competitiveness in training camp. And this guy's going to bring some competitiveness. He's a former first-round pick. He's a freak athlete. Just looking at his history, the guy can play. He was a track runner. He's a basketball player. in high school. It was, state qualifier and track. Like, this guy got some ability, and obviously, he hasn't done great in the league, but just going to bring competitiveness, a change of scenery. And like you alluded to earlier, usually it's the guys that come to New England and change their careers around. But New England's not the same team. They don't have Tom Brady there, where teams can come and play with Tom Brady. They don't got Josh McDaniels right now. They don't have the pieces in place where you just plug them, and they don't have the Rob Gronkowskis that you're going to be playing with right now. That offense is not the same offense. So it's a little bit more difficult for those players just to come in and be naturally successful like that right now.
And you were talking about when you were traded to Detroit on a Tuesday, you show up on Sunday. Now, obviously, he's going to have a little bit of time to get acclimated. What's it like for him right now? Now, this is obviously a move that he wanted to make. He's probably excited about the opportunity to get to Chicago. What do you do? Like, what does Inkiel do? Does he reach out to Justin Fields? Is he calling people? I'm assuming Justin is calling him. But what did you do? Did you reach out to your teammates? How does that work?
So, with me, when I signed with the Saints, which was my last year in the league, I signed before OTAs, but it's a similar type deal. You sign and then you go right into OTAs and you go into training camp. Like I said, with New England, and ended up with Detroit there. I went right into practices, and you're in the game weeks, you're meeting everybody, and everything's flying at you. This is a good time for him because right now it's before training camp. You'll get a chance, you'll get a playbook, you'll get to look at the book, you'll get to go in and meet the coaches. What he needs to do is he does need to contact Justin Fields, see if there's somewhere he can go, or the guys throwing somewhere, go meet the guys. But more importantly than that, that's not a necessity. What he needs to do is he needs to get in the book. Just get familiar with the terms so you can get in training camp. You know what you're doing. You're not behind schedule, and you can start competing. Talk to your coach, get in the book, learn the offense, meet the coaches, and that's more important, what I would think. If I was him in his position, I want to get in the book, meet the coaches, obviously find a way, maybe just on Instagram or social media. Hey, Justin, like if you and the guys are throwing anywhere, I want to come throw, meet the guys, and obviously try to get on the same page. But the training camp for him, a guy coming in now, is going to be very important, and then moving into those preseason games. So I think he's in a good spot to still come in and compete for a job.
Yeah, it seems interesting. Like it's amazing to me the way the world works now. Like Instagram is probably the easiest way to get a hold of a lot of these players. And if you look at Justin Fields' Instagram account or his Twitter account or anything like that, he is not taking like every day. It's like a new workout video. Here's him grinding. What has been your impression of him over the last couple of weeks? Because it feels like he has not slowed down one bit. Like even when he's on vacation or whatever. I know there was the video about him on a treadmill and everybody made fun of him for it. But it feels like he's really taking his training and his situation coming into this season very seriously.
I'm a social media guy and I like posting my workouts. I'm a certified strength and conditioning coach. I'm a personal trainer. So I love posting those workouts. But I think it shows that he is a guy that's committed. He's going to be out there and work every day. I mean, he doesn't need to, you never see Tom Brady posting workout videos or a lot of these guys, like they don't need to show that. But
Tom Brady's an old man though.
He is an old man. You're right. He didn't grow up in the social media era, but he does have some funny stuff out there. I like his social media when he starts doing like the stuff during the game week. But I think Fields is doing a great job. He's showing his workout. He's got some work ethic, and our second string guy, Trevor Siemian, my buddy out there from Northwestern. Obviously, I always got to give Siemian a shout out. My Northwestern guy. I told you I was his wide receiver last year when he was playing in New Orleans. He lives in Chicago, so he texted me like, "Yo, can you come and catch some balls?" So I'm out there running routes as a receiver, as a tight end, just so Siemian can get prepared for the season. So yeah, I think that's interesting. I think Pringle, Velus Jones, Mooney, and then you add him. I think this receiving core is not going to be as bad as everybody's thinking. People are saying they got the worst receivers in the league. I think it's going to be a competitive group, competitive training camp. I'm looking forward to seeing who steps up.
Yeah, I think that any receiving room that has Darnell Mooney cannot be considered one of the worst. And I know we talked about it before. What are your impressions of Darnell Mooney? What do you think's in store for him this season? And can moves like this, bringing in veterans like N'Keal Harry, does that help him out? How do you feel that he's going to do this season?
I think it helps him out for sure. And since I'm not trying to say this is real. Since I first saw Mooney play, I go, this guy is special. For me, something I look at is just how natural and confident players are when they play. And I can tell that through the way guys run routes and catch the football. Mooney's a guy who will catch the ball and continue through his move. He's not going to catch the ball and brace for impact or some. Mooney is a special player. He's got incredible hands. He runs great routes. The sky's the limit. I think they obviously need some players to step up. Got to have Pringle, St. Brown, Harry. Somebody on the outside's got to step up to clear up some space and to make some matchup problems. I know, obviously, with the running game, people are saying, the Bears running game, but I think we got one of the best running backs in the league. I think Montgomery, he only averaged 3.8 yards per carry, but he averaged over 2.5 after contact. If this offensive line can block a little bit, I think David Montgomery is a top 5 running back. Not just David Montgomery is a top 5 running back. Mooney, in my opinion, is a top 15 receiver. I'm that high on Mooney and that high on Montgomery. So if Fields can play, if the offensive line can block, and some of these outside receivers can show that they can get open, they can separate and catch the football, I think that the Bears have a chance this year to really surprise some people on offense. And obviously you see, Fields out here like training like the Terminator on social media. So That's good.
That is amazing. Although I will say, who was it? ESPN, who was disrespecting David Montgomery, who didn't I don't know. I don't want to get too wrapped up into preseason rankings and everything like that, but it seems real disingenuous to not have David Montgomery amongst at least the top 10 running backs. Obviously, we're a little biased, but you can watch him. He is an exceptional running back who played in an offense that didn't necessarily cater to what everybody's skill set was. I think it's ridiculous that people just seem to be overlooking him.
Incredible running back. I've played with and seen a lot of good running backs in my day. In Philly, I played with LaShawn McCoy for 4 seasons. I played, in Jacksonville. We didn't really have a go-to guy, but guys like Jordan Todman, Maurice Jones-Drew, guys who are good players. I've played with Theo Riddick, and I've never seen a guy like David Montgomery that he just a pure runner, breaks tackles, will take that first hit and just fall forward. He's small and compact, but so my saving grace last season, I don't know if this Bears team's, hoping they're going to be good, but the guy David Montgomery. So that's going to keep him in some games. The guy like that, a running back like him, if this offensive line can come together, you get the running game going, get Fields going, I think it's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of positivity surrounding this Bears team. They're probably going to be better on offense than a lot of people are giving them credit for. And I do want to take a moment right now to remind everybody that AM 1530 WCKG in Chicago is the Chicago home of the Sick Podcast. You can hear us Friday afternoons, 2 p.m. Chicago time. And then after us, the No Name Pod comes on with Olin and Jason. They do a great job. 2 hours of quality Bears talk that you will not find anywhere. And so we're very proud to be part of that family, and we appreciate everybody who's been listening to us in Chicago. And we want to thank everybody who's been joining us here on YouTube through the live chats and everything like that. And as a matter of fact, we got some questions starting to roll through. So Sammy, if we can start rolling, putting out some of those tweets. And so John leads us on. John Laurie wants to know, and John, of course, has been a regular contributor here. Do you think that N'Keal Harry will be a good fit for Justin Fields? I will say this. He's not necessarily a speed guy, but he makes the contested catches, which I think can help out a lot. What do you think about the fit with Justin Fields? As I say that, as you're taking a swig, I apologize. I'm like the waiter who shows up right as you put a bite of food in your mouth and be like, how's your meal? But how do you think about the fit?
No, I think he's a great fit. He's huge for a receiver. I mean, he's 6'2.5", 230 pounds in college coming out. I think he was like top 3 or 4 in the country in contested catches. So I think he'll be a great pick, a great fit for Fields. And then also he's one of the top blocking receivers in the league. Justin Fields loves to run the ball. They have some design quarterback runs. Obviously, you don't want to see a lot of that, but he scrambles a lot. And for a guy that will move around and get out of the pocket, he's a guy that will help make those long plays break. He knows how to block downfield. He's an effort guy. Not only is he a big target, can make contested catches, not gonna outrun many people, but I think that helps too. The fact that he will block. A lot of receivers, they're pretty. They want to catch the ball. They want to score their touchdowns. With this guy, hey, he says, hey, I know I got to block. And, to me, that's always impressive. Obviously, he's a tight end. I always respected the receivers. When you see him block, I'd always go and you give him a little pound, like, hey, man, appreciate that was a great block. When we have a big run and the cornerback makes a tackle 15 yards down the field, the receiver holds that block, it might be a touchdown. Those are the big deals. Instead of averaging 3.8 yards a carry, David Montgomery busts a couple of these runs because the cornerback or the safety aren't in on the play. I think that's huge. And that could help the run game greatly.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I always enjoy as a football fan is any wide receiver who loves to block. And like growing up, I remember Michael Irvin really took a lot of pride in blocking. We've seen recently guys like Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry, those guys love blocking. So that's Harry's calling card. And if he brings that to the Chicago Bears, I'm a huge fan of that. But Sammy, how about another question, please? Oh, see, I got to pull out my glasses. Rick, what's going on, buddy? Now, Eberflus talks about competition all the time. Is the Harry trade not just to silence the critics, but also to provide competition for guys like Equanimeous St. Brown? Like we talk about this, like Daz Newsome. These are guys like not everybody is guaranteed a spot on this roster. Is this also a shot to the guys who are already here?
Yeah, I think that's what it's doing. If as a tight end, whenever I saw the team, I don't care if he's an undrafted free agent, if he's a veteran guy, you knew who the guys were coming in you had to compete against. Not that you need that, but sometimes you would get comfortable. I never like to be comfortable or anything like that, but sometimes it'd be hard not to. You look at the roster, you go, okay, I'm making this team. There's no way I could see any scenario in which one of these guys will beat me out. But now, some of these receivers, St. Brown, Pringle, I think Pringle's pretty much locked in there. But Sharp, they see Harry coming in, they say, okay, this roster just got a little bit tougher. So now maybe they keep 5 receivers, could only keep 4. We got 3 good tight ends, 5 receivers, who knows? I got to make sure I'm on my stuff. I got to make sure I'm contributing on special teams, make sure I'm doing all the little things to make sure that I make this roster.
Yeah, when you have a player come in like Harry, now obviously his NFL career hasn't progressed the way a lot of us would have expected, being a first-round pick. Do the players on the roster look at him like, this guy has not done anything in New England? Or do they look like, oh my God, this guy was a first-round pick, I better get my stuff together?
I think you look at him, it's a little bit of both, right? So you're like, okay, this guy was a first-round pick. Like, this guy's a big deal. He has talent. And as a player that there's something about him. He was a first-round pick. If you're a first-round pick in the locker room, that brings in an aura of, it's like almost like a mystical thing. You were a first-round pick. There's a lot of undrafted guys in there, late-round guys in there. But when you have a first-round pick in there, that's special. So that does bring in a certain aura of, wow, this guy was this, he was here. So that's special. That first round pick, they will look at him like that. And obviously he hasn't really panned out in New England, but there is going to be that, okay, this guy can play. There's something there. He was a first round pick for a reason. And the New England Patriots, it's a pretty decent team, if I could say so. I mean, the New England Patriots are, the gold standard in the NFL. Obviously they've had a tough couple of years, but hey.
No, absolutely. Yeah, nobody's running off strings of Super Bowls like they have. We have these teams winning Super Bowls here and there, but nobody's had this sustained success like the New England Patriots. So that absolutely matters. Sammy, how about another question, please? Oh my gosh. I don't know if you saw this, Clay, but of course I've been doing Good Morning Football all weekend, or all week, I should say. I'm used to doing the weekend show, but I had a Walter Payton jacket. I don't know if you caught it, but Roots of Fight, I had my Walter Payton jacket on. Did you happen to see it? If not, I
didn't see the jacket. You're going to have to take this one. I'm sure it was a great, you got a fashion sense, but I didn't get to see the jacket.
Yeah, if you missed the show, anybody who follows me on Instagram, I think it's on my Instagram story. I did tag Roots of Fight. They do a great job. This shirt, as a matter of fact, is Roots of Fight. They have a collection, a Walter Payton collection. You see Jarrett wearing it all the time as well. Hoodies, shorts, all this stuff. It's pretty much what I've been wearing, especially now that, the Angels aren't doing so well. It's all Bears gear all the time. And of course, being here at Good Morning Football Week or Good Morning Football. No, I'm part of the big show now. But was rocking that gear today, so I will have to ask you to go. Well, you don't have
to. Check out your story as soon as we get off here.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I was, and I'm actually walking around New York City, and I don't know, you come out here a lot, so it's probably not as special to you, but like I will be walking and then find myself under the Empire State Building and be like, oh, there that is. It's just weird. It's just weird.
It happens a lot. It happens.
Yeah, there's all sorts of things like, oh, there's the Ghostbusters thing. It's amazing. I love this place. But Sammy, how about another question, please? Ninos, Adam. Hey, Rank. I'm happy with the current wide receivers, but I'm biting my nails on who's going to be the left tackle. What do you say? Now, for me, and Clay, you've gone through situations like this. We've seen a lot of shuffling on the offensive line, but it's all before pads have been put on.
Yeah.
Should we make too much of a judgment on what we've seen so far, or does it really not matter until the end of this month when everybody's in camp in pads?
Okay, back in the Wild West, 2009, 2010, back when 2011, I was a young guy. Tell a quick 20-second story. I remember I got drafted, and then you go right into OTAs. I thought OTAs were like they are now. You run around full pads, tackle. Yeah. OTAs were like that. Then you went into training camp. There were no rules where you had to have 3 practices. We did 20 as a rookie. There was rookie training camp, and then the vets got a couple days off. We did 24 straight days of tackle football with Andy Reid. I remember calling my brother and be like, "Yo, I'm happy I got drafted. 4th round. This is great. I don't think this is for me, man. I love football, but this is the most intense thing. It can't even be considered the same game. What we did that first year and my second year." And then the NFLPA made these new, the uncapped year, the lockout, made these changes to where you can only have 3 practices and you had to have an off day. Incredible, the difference. Elongated careers like crazy. But no, for offensive linemen, when you have the pajamas on, there's no way you can judge what these guys can do and do together. Obviously, there's a learning curve there as a coach. If you can see if a guy can pick up the scheme, is he going the right way? Did he go on inside zone right? Did he take an outside zone step? Did he go left? There's little things you can pick up on, but as far as how a player plays as an offensive lineman, you cannot see the physicality, you cannot see the hand placement, you cannot see anything basically that you need to see from an offensive lineman. And that all comes in training camp. And as far as the left tackle's concerned, Jenkins, Davenport, I think there's some guys there that can compete, and, we'll see what happens. I mean, it's not a strong position, but I think it's a position that they can, get by with.
Do you think sometimes that coaches kind of, send a message to a player where, especially a player like Tevin Jenkins, and no disrespect to him, I'm not saying that he's a bad player by any stretch of the imagination, but, he didn't play a lot as a rookie. He battled through some injuries. Is this just a situation where, hey, we want to see how he responds to a little bit of adversity because we really want him to take that next step because he obviously has a lot of talent?
Well, I think this year they need him to take that step, but they do. They want to put him in a situation. They'll do that to guys, and I've heard coaches talk about it. They would start fights with certain guys. They would tell a player, hey, start a fight today in practice with him because we want to get his motor going. He hasn't been, so guys would literally start fights with certain players to try to push their buttons, and the coaches are over there, taking a note, seeing how the guy reacts. Coaches will do a lot of different things. Obviously, bring players in, put pressure on them, but that's huge. They're only going to go as far as their offensive line this year. You got to protect Fields. He's still a young guy. He still takes, maybe a tick too long to get rid of the ball, so they're going to have to hold up. So I think it's a very important year for Tevin Jenkins, and I'll be interested to see how he responds to this.
Yeah, I am too. I still have a lot of faith in him, and I remember going into last season, a lot of people, when the Bears were, well, this goes back to the Justin Fields draft, where we were mocking Tevin Jenkins to us at pick number 20. So to be able to get him in the second round was kind of a score. We just need to see a little bit more over the next couple of years. Let's have another question, though, Sammy. Love Bears all. We seem to be banking on the new coaching staff to improve the team, but does Getsy's lack of play calling worry you? What do you say, Clay?
Here's what kind of worries me about Getsy is the fact that he was with Aaron Rodgers for the last 2 years. I hope he knows, obviously he's a smart guy. He's gotten this far that you're playing with a completely different type of quarterback. People saying that, this guy, he's taking success and he's taking that success that the Packers had as far as statistically and as an offense. And for me, I'm thinking he's literally telling Aaron Rodgers nothing. There's basically nothing he's telling Aaron Rodgers that he hasn't seen. This guy is like Tom Brady. Like you're in the meeting room with Tom Brady and I'm in New England. Even Matt Stafford, guys like that. I mean, they're in the meetings. They're taking the meetings as they're a coach too. Tom Brady's literally stopping, rewinding, pointing stuff out in the meeting. It's not like it's just Getsy. He had Aaron Rodgers. So this is his first test. You got a young quarterback in Justin Fields. He's not your typical quarterback. He's not a guy that's going to drop back 3 steps, 5 steps, ball out, ball out, ball out. Obviously, you want to get him to that. But from what I've seen, he's a little late. Obviously, he's got talent like nobody's business. He's got a good arm, all that. But can he have an offense and call plays to be successful with Justin Fields and not having a crutch to lean on as one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time? That's what scares me. You get used to having a guy like Aaron Rodgers to lean on, and obviously then Devontae Adams. Look who you got now. Obviously we love Mooney and everybody there, but you don't got Adams and you don't got Rodgers. So it's going to be a big change for him.
Yeah, I think there is a learning curve for him as well. And again, this is probably why I would caution people. And I'm probably the most optimistic Bears fan around, so maybe I should be giving myself my own advice. But there'll be some plays. They'll do some things. But as long as he's not calling jet sweeps on 4th and 2, I think that's an improvement. If he's, again, I understand, and I know that Matt Nagy is a friend of yours, and we don't want to make too much fun of him. It's difficult to do. I think it's difficult to do both jobs. But I think having a guy whose sole focus is like, listen, you just run the offense. That's all you need to do. Hopefully, some of the wisdom that you gained from being in the same quarterback room, not only with Aaron Rodgers, but Nathaniel Hackett, who's now the head coach in Denver. There is going to be, these guys, we saw it with Adam Gase, who Adam Gase was touted as this offensive genius because Jay Cutler had his best season with Adam Gase. Peyton Manning had his best season with Adam Gase. But you're like, those are still 2 quality quarterbacks. Yeah. Like obviously Peyton Manning being one of the best in the game. Jay Cutler, very talented player who knows what he's doing. We can pump the brakes a little bit. So I just feel that what I've heard so far with designing an offense that's revolving around Justin Fields, working on his mechanics, I think those are the things that'll definitely help out. He might not go out and throw for 5,000 yards this season, but I think we should see some marked improvement. Okay, how about another question there, Sammy? From Vaughn, what are the receivers you have making the roster now, and how many on the final 53? Now, again, we talked about this where Darnell Mooney's the undisputed number 1. Byron Pringle should be the number 2. Velus Jones Jr. was a 3rd-round draft pick. He is making the roster. I think it comes down to the guys like Equanimous St. Brown. There was a problem with David Moore. His arrest over the 4th of July weekend calls into question. And really, there's probably somebody who should be feeling the heat right now because not only from the police, but, from the fact that they're bringing in a former 1st-round pick now, a guy that we really like. So I think that Equanimous and David Moore, and Daz Newsome, I think Daz Newsome is in real trouble. I wouldn't feel very comfortable right now if I was one of those 3 guys.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to come down to special teams usually if you keep 5 or 6, but we got Mooney, Pringle, Jones, Harry. That's 4. And then St. Brown, Newsome, Sharp, Moore.
Sharp, yes.
So, I mean, if they keep 5, right now, I'd say it's, St. Brown, Harry, Jones, Pringle, and Mooney. But, it depends if they keep 5 or 6. And like I said, I've been saying I really love this tight end group with Kmet, O'Shaughnessy, Ryan Griffin. I know they're not the biggest name guys, but I've played with them in the past. And
we talked about it when we were on last time. Like these are definite players that because they've scored touchdowns in key situations. Like it's not, you didn't sign Tony Gonzalez, but at the same time, you've signed guys who can play in the NFL, and play at a high level. So I agree with you.
Run and catch, and I love the tight ends that not just the tight ends that want to do all the pretty stuff and catch the football. Those guys, to me, I'm actually pretty annoyed. I'm like, that's not fair. How do you get to do that job? You don't have to do any of the blocking. But these guys like to block. These guys can catch and run, and they can do it all. So, I think that's a huge upside for the Bears this year.
Yeah, that's the tone that they're setting with Matt Eberflus, is having those grinders, those absolute football players who go out there and not afraid to do the dirty work. So that's what we love to see. So I could see 5. I don't know. Again, I think, like you said, it comes down to special teams. That's going to be a big thing as well. And it feels like the way the Bears were drafting a lot of these guys, special teams is going to be a huge factor. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. All right, Sammy, how about another question? If we have one. That's it. Ethan. Hey, Ethan, what's going on? Do you think the Bears are done acquiring players? You know what? I mean, this one kind of came out of nowhere. Everybody's been out on vacation, but the Bears still managed to swing a deal in a time when not a lot of things are happening around the NFL. Do you think the Bears are still going to make some moves over the next couple of weeks?
Usually the deals aren't to this caliber. Obviously, it's not a huge caliber. This is a former first-round pick, and you're trading a draft pick. There'll be a lot of guys coming in and out, and you'll see a guy that gets cut from a team. The Bears will bring him in. You see that a lot as a player, in the day. But as far as big-name guys, trades and stuff happening, I don't see – I mean, it's possible, but I don't see much happening come the start of training camp, barring some sort of an injury where you really need to make a move for someone. You don't feel comfortable with anybody in free agency, anybody in your roster. So, I'd say the roster is probably pretty much set. You're going to have the bottom of the roster is going to fluctuate a lot. You're going to bring in some undrafted free agents, a guy that gets released from a team you want to take a peek at, and there'll be some fluctuation there. But as far as your core team, guys that you will see on the field on Sunday and will be a big part of your roster, I don't see anything happening, after training camp starts.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that we saw with the Baker Mayfield trade. Now that has been, going on since the draft. And it's taken this long for that to finally play out this week or just recently. I have to believe that the Bears have been working on this for quite some time. Yeah. They're trying to get their ducks in a row, figure out the compensation, and credit to Ryan Poles for just standing his ground, not giving up a 6th-round pick or even a 5th-round pick. I would have to go back and look at the terms of the deal. So forgive me if I get this wrong, but it doesn't seem like it's compensatory. I don't know that it moves up if Harry makes any sort of significant strides this year. So these are the kind of moves that we really like. And again, this is one that we've been calling for on this podcast for a lot of the reasons. I think that, the upside is there. We remember watching him at Arizona State. He was a tremendous player. So again, I think that'll be a pretty good opportunity. All right, Sammy, what about another question, please? Michael Leisure, do you envision a strong defensive special teams type of team like Bears, like past Bears team? Yeah, what do you think the identity? Do you think there'll be a lot of significance on the special teams and defense?
I think so. I think that's something they want. Obviously, I'm an old school Bears fan. I mean, my favorite Bears team is the Urlacher, Briggs, Mike Brown, Charles Tillman, Alex Brown, defensive end. Those are my favorite teams. You had Hunter Hillenmeyer as the 3rd linebacker. I mean, I love those teams. Even the Ted Washington defensive tackle. I don't think they're going to be anything like that. But I think they will have a strong defense. I love Roquan Smith. Roquan's a buddy of mine. I'll hang out with him in the city often. I think they got some good players. I don't think they're going to be to that level of that Bears team, but another thing is I think some of their best players are on offense. David Montgomery. I mean, I've said it again. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Like, to me, he's a top 5 running back. I know people kill me for that, but I think he's a top 5 running back. You put him in the situation as some of these other guys. The guy's incredible. Just watching him play, I would love to have blocked for him. Mooney, I think, is one of the most underrated receivers in the league. The way he runs routes, his hands, he can take punishment. He's not that big. Obviously, you got Fields, and I think those 3 guys are 3 your big time players. So I don't think it's going to be the old school Bears team. You had the Urlacher, the Briggs, the big polarizing guys on the defensive side of the ball. But I think they're definitely going to have a solid defense this year. And he showed in the draft. Everybody wanted Eberflus to go receivers, and we went defense first.
No, you really love that. Again, that was one of the things I was calling for, was for them to look at the offensive side of the football. Wanted to see us be able to score some points. But the more that you see Kyler Gordon, the more that you see Jaquan Brisker, you really love the talent that those guys bring. And again, how quickly, though, do you think, you talk about those great teams with Urlacher and Lance Briggs, a big part of that were guys like Peanut Tillman and Mike Brown. How quickly could the Bears get to that level?
I think, like you said, I mean, Kyler Gordon, Jaquan Brisker, Roquan's not old by any stretch of the imagination. They got some good players, Muhammad. I like Tunga. I like, Robert Quinn's still there. I think he still brings that veteran presence. I think, a couple seasons you get this secondary turned around and experienced, and you have a pretty solid defense there. I think it could happen, and I know that's the identity that Chicago loves, is that strong defense, the supporting offense, and that great special teams unit. That's what we grew up on, man. A guy like Devin Hester. I wish there was a guy like him out there again to just turn games around. I so love watching him. But special teams and defense, I mean, that's Bears football.
Yeah, you know what? And don't sleep on Velus Jones Jr. being that guy. I know before the draft, somebody had asked the show, like, they randomly before the draft just offered up Velus Jones Jr. as a possibility. And I was shocked, because I remembered him from USC, didn't pay a lot of attention to him at Tennessee. He's a great special teams guy who can come in and contribute. Obviously went back, watched more film once he was drafted by our team. But You know what? I always liked him as a guy who could instantly compete on special teams. Now, my computer is running down, but I think we have time for one more. And by the way, I want to thank the Bears for making this trade tonight so that we had something to talk about, because this would have been a lot of us talking about the Bachelor and Bachelorette.
Yeah.
But I don't want to confine you to that, because I really do. And I found this the last time that we talked. I really appreciate your football insights. And again, making it in the league for as long as you did is an absolute accomplishment. So we love talking to you. We love your insights on that. So Sammy, why don't we bring up one more question? Bring us a good closer. How is Velus BTS? What does this mean?
Behind the scenes?
The scenes. Oh my gosh, Tony Black. I'm not down with your young kids vernacular. You know what? Let me tell you. I'll tell you a story real quick. We do the podcast, and you know what? I didn't want to keep Velus too long, so and on the show, a reminder: you can catch the show Friday afternoons at 2 p.m. on AM 1530 WCKG in Chicago. And so I didn't want to take up a lot of his time. So we were like, hey, Velus, thank you so much for dropping by. We'll see you later. And then normally, because we still had more show going on, people would just bounce, be like, okay, we'll see you later. He stuck around and watched the show. Well, and I'm like, if you're going to watch the show, come back. We'll get you back on. Like I thought I was doing, because he was in a hotel room.
Yeah.
I didn't want to spend, you don't want to take up too much of his time, like I'm doing to you right now. But no, he's a great guy. Have you had a chance to meet him by any chance?
I haven't had a chance to meet him. I'm looking forward to getting out there and checking out some training camp and preseason games and really getting to watch some of the team. But I haven't got to see any of the guys yet this year.
Okay, well, listen. If not, maybe we can foster an introduction or something like that. You're gonna love him once you get a chance to know him. He is such a nice kid. Like everything that you're seeing is genuine. He's a very thoughtful, very respectful person. The maturity that goes along with being a 25-year-old master's degree holder, like it just
wow. He has a master's degree.
He does a math. That's what he did. He went to Tennessee and got his master's.
That's impressive. Yeah, that's very impressive.
It is one of the things that people they love to make fun of his age, but you're like, well, he did go and get his master's. Like, education's important. He learned an additional skill, which was route running and everything like that. But listen, Clay, thank you very much for joining us. We reached out. Speaking about behind the scenes, we reached out to Clay at the last moment. He graciously agreed to be here tonight. You're a big star. You don't have to do that. We appreciate it. We now consider you a friend of the show. So I hope we can do this again in the near future. And perhaps, while we're both out here in New York, maybe we can meet up. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. I'm out here. So, and anytime I would love to come on the show. I'd love talking Bears. I'm a Chicago guy, Chicago native. You give me a time and a place, I'll go talk Bears with you all day, all night. But yeah, I'll be out here in New York City. So you want to grab a cup of coffee or something, talk some football? Yes. I'm in.
I will, I might hold you to that. But thank you so much for being here tonight, and we appreciate it. And there he goes, the great Clay Harbor. So we want to thank him. We want to thank the Bears for making a move. Want to remind everybody, Friday afternoon, WCKG in Chicago, AM 1530. We will be back with Ill Will is scheduled to join us for the latest version of the podcast. So it's bound to be a great show. So hopefully you will check it out. That will drop Thursday afternoon. You can listen to it, of course, in Chicago, AM 1530 WCKG. So for everybody, for Sammy and the SICK team, we thank you for being here. Bear down and go ahead and roll that animation.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the SICK Podcast with Adam Rank on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.